and gentlemen, you're watching Geekcaster. I'm here with Ray Felix Strachan because it's early in the morning. We are filming early in the morning. Oh man, everybody is sleeping, stretching, and we are working. We are making it happen.
Making it happen.
Oh yes, we are.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm good, man.
What is this taxi thing? What's going on?
This thing's offline, by the way.
What happened? Oh yeah, that would yes.
We did the Comic-Con last week with me and Dan Hort down the block from near Comic-Con.
Okay.
And we had several guests. We had Andrea Leroy Davis.
Mm-hmm.
We had Clayton Patterson. We had a bunch of people. Basically, we rented out a theater space.
Mm-hmm.
It was street level.
Okay.
And we just did panels, like comic book panels and workshops. So me and Tom did a panel about Trumpland. We had Dan Hort brought a bunch of guests. I feel terrible because I don't know all the names, but and we had a bunch of people talking about comics, the comic book industry, their challenges, talking about alternative spaces, talking about New York Comic Con and their selectivity of who's a professional, who's not, how they allocate tables and spaces and prices and talking about creating new spaces for change and difference, and that's what we call it Comic-Con, like almost like socialism, it's like like against the corporations. It was kind of like tongue in cheek, but we got a donation. The space was donated to us from the Marxist Project, so thank you. And then the taxi hat is from Clayton Patterson, one of the artist there. He's a famous photographer who documented the Lower East Side in the 70s and 80s, and I think some parts of the 60s, but primarily 70s, 80s, and the early 90s. And he documented his photos. He had photographs of like Grace Jones back in the day before she blew up, Madonna, Basquiat, Keith Haring, Matt Dillon, all these people that hung out in the nightlife, the underground scene and stuff. Everything Lower East Side, he covered the gangs, the cult community, the culture.
Wow.
And he became an artist like in the late 80s, 90s, and like he did some fashion stuff, and he made hats. He had celebrities buying his hats, So originally he first started doing hand-painted hats with these characters and figures on it, and celebrities would buy them, like Matt Dillon, Madonna, all these people would buy these hats, and his art style was similar to Basquiat, but not identical, but just
so you have the same vibe.
Same vibe, that street culture vibe of like like indie art, So as an indie artist, he started doing that, and then he started making these hats, and I bought one of his hats. We actually traded up some stuff. Like I offered him money. I was like, "No, just give me some of your books," and I was like, "All right, so cool." So,
That's cool.
He's like 71, and we did a graphic novel based on his life. So there's a new graphic novel coming out on this publisher, an indie publisher. And again, that one's going to also be multi-language. I did 2 pages on it because it was an unpaid gig. And I don't like unpaid gigs. So it's like that I worked on it. A friend of mine, Julian Village, he's the one that did the graphic novel. So we can't eat off of unpaid gigs. So I contributed that.
Well, this is not an unpaid gig.
Well, this World Without Superheroes is self-publishing. I only get paid when I sell a copy.
Okay.
Back in the day when I lived in the Bronx, I applied for grants and artist grants and things like that, and that paid for the books. But now I don't live in the Bronx anymore. I moved up to the mountains, to like escape the chaos of the city. So since I escaped the chaos of the city, now everything comes out of pocket. So right now, I made 5 copies of these to solicit to stores and so forth, and try to like get Amazon and some other places to carry it, just to it's almost like a test run, before you go big, and then hopefully I'm looking for a distributor that's willing to distribute it. Hopefully our Canadian partners are willing to distribute it, but that they're waiting for the sales for the Trump book to come in before that happens. we'll see what happens.
Trumpland.
Yeah, and I already got, we're already thinking about the sequel that would talk about impeachment and all that other stuff, with Trump. So we're already working in the works discussing a sequel for Trumpland because there's so much, like you said, so much going on,
And actually, tell everyone to pick up Trumpland. I'm gonna put this live on Instagram. We're actually doing the TV show live, but I want people to also get a feel of
right. You can go on
social media.
Amazon.com and go in their search engine, put Bronx Heroes and Trumpland. You can pre-order it. It's only $10. And if you get one of these, you can get 25% off your book if you order one of these copies in my hand here. How do you get this?
Trumpland. Check that out. Again, they could go where?
ArsenalPulp.com, or you can order from my website, bxhcc.com, or you can go to Amazon. And you can go to Target and BarnesandNobles.com and pre-order it. So,
And if they don't get all that, they could also just Google Bronx Heroes, right?
Google Bronx Heroes, yeah.
Cool.
Bronx Heroes and Trumpland.
Excelente. Now how do you do that? Bang. Cool. Yeah, man. Share a story. Yeah. In fact, you know what? That's interesting what we just did. We're in this age where you have to share stories all the time.
Yeah, of course.
What is that about?
Life is stories.
How did that affect you as a comic book creator and also a convention producer? Because you're the creator of Bronx Heroes and also the creator of Women in Comics. So how does social media affect you?
Well, it bombards me. I feel like I used to have all this time before the internet. Before the internet, you go to work, come home, watch some TV, draw, create. But since the inception of the internet, you really have to be on it, right? You kind of have that FOMO going on. You got to keep ever present, constantly tweeting. You're basically taking your private life and eliminating it on social media, showing people where you're at,
what you're doing, who you're doing it with.
Exactly.
Right.
Tagging yourself with people. I was never that person growing up. Like, I met a lot of celebrities when I was a kid, just by chance living in New York. But I never asked for an autograph. I never asked for a photograph or a picture. I wasn't that guy, It's like...
I did get Goofy's autograph at Disney World as a kid.
That's cool. That's good, though.
That meant something.
That meant something, yeah.
It was like, Goofy's autograph!
Yeah. Goofy's making like $10 an hour. Signing things like...
Those poor people, they can't talk all day.
They're sweating in that costume. But because of the internet and social media, now you got to do those things. Like, hey, I'm with this person. Hey, I'm with that person. So it's almost like you're creating another persona of yourself.
Right.
Like here, you and I could be ourselves. We know each other outside of Geekcaster.
Yeah.
But in the social media world, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to put on a face front. You don't want to get too personal. Right. You have to kind of divide your life and say, well, this is my social media life, my private life. You never know. You have to divide.
There's certain I talk about a lot, and it's interesting because between Geekcaster, Foodcaster, Soulcaster, I'm hitting all these aspects of thought where there's very little you can keep to yourself.
Don't forget Gamecaster.
How do
That's another one for you.
How do I don't want some random midget coming after me again. Bum, bum, bum. Shots fired. But, it's like, how do you do it? How do you keep the balance?
Oh, man.
And do you keep your, family life separate? Or
to some degree, I mean, people are interested in your family. Sometimes I'll put my son in there, put my wife in there. I try not to do it that often because you don't never know who's following you, man. You really don't. I mean, I had some people that came out to Philadelphia and they're like, "Hey, man, I follow you on Facebook. I know you. I know." Like, someone just said, "Yeah, I know you." I was like, "We never met." He said, "I follow you on the gram." I was flattered. I mean, they weren't weird or strange.
Right.
But I was like, really? It's like someone I never saw, met, knew, never saw their little icon, nothing.
Yeah.
So you don't know. You just don't know. So,
Right.
that's why I always say you got to be humble. You got to be like good to people. Can't curse people out randomly. Can't have,
No,
you can't
at least
have,
not randomly.
Yeah, you can't. You can't have ego road rage on this while walking through these cons. Like a lot of people do. They carry.
Oh,
themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like weird.
Which is like such a blessing to be creative and people like your art. Be nice to people.
It's like you're here today, gone tomorrow.
You're living the life.
Right.
You know.
I'm blessed, man.
Yeah.
I had a very difficult life, and like I was saying, I wrote this little 20-year intro here. It's like I'll just read the first paragraph, but it just says, it's hard to believe that it's been 20 years since World Without Superheroes was first published in color under Cup of Java Studios, and 25 years since it appeared in the anthology Nimrod Press Cup of Java in black and white when I was a student at SVA. It's been a long road, and half my life is gone. When I began studying comics at the School of Visual Arts, I had lost one girlfriend from a drug overdose, and then I became a new father with an abusive girlfriend. That didn't last. My second year in school, I had just ended a destructive relationship with my daughter's mother, and even though I broke all the time I managed to put together a fanzine under my short-lived imprint. During this time, every teacher that I had would tell me verbatim, comics is not art. So going to art school in 1993, people didn't look at comic books the way it was now, You could be a cartooning major or illustrative major or fine arts major. But comic book teachers would say, you're more fine art, you're not comics. This is not for you. And then fine art teachers, I switched my major into fine arts. And they're like, you're not a fine artist, you're a cartoonist, and cartoons aren't art.
Wow.
Comics is not art.
And
so my whole career as a college student, I was told that I'm not an artist.
Now, do you think the only reason why, fortunately but unfortunately, that people are saying yay is because people are making money and they're looking at Marvel and looking at DC and looking at these properties.
Right.
Oh, it generates a lot of money, so it must be worth something.
Right. So the value equates worth, right? So if you value something and it equates something, then all of a sudden it means something. Now you're a comic book artist. Hey, you're 45. You're an artist now. Right? You survived the shit.
You survived.
And how many people didn't survive? I mean,
right. And these movies.
Yeah, these movies.
And I don't want you to go without, I don't know if we need another segment or whatever, but listen, your comments, you need to follow this guy. And we're talking about stalkers, but you need to follow this guy because the comments on Facebook and your crew is hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Hilarious. Yeah. But also the wealth of knowledge that you have too. I mean, you always kind of hit things on the nail.
Always.
Hit things on the nail with it. But the movies definitely are making the comics look good. They're not necessarily helping the comic book community at all.
No.
They're really helping people to buy the comics per se.
Right. Because people aren't reading really Marvel and DC comics. They're not. They're going to the movies.
If they do buy it, they keep it in the thing.
It's like an impulse buy, like a shopper's habit. Like most comic collectors, the majority of people that I know that still collect comic books on a week-to-week basis aren't really reading them. Because where do you have time to read?
Interesting.
And I was like that too. I was collecting comics for 3 years. I was filling up long boxes in the habit. I'll get the comic, put it in the bag, get the cardboard, put it in the box. I'll read it at some point. And then you got 3 long boxes full of books you didn't read.
Wow.
And then now it's probably 12, because I buy people's collections, or I was back in the day. So I'd buy people's collections. I got this, I got that. And then when do you have time to read? It's like I said, before the internet, people were more literate.
You know that they say that there's a disease where people will hear music and then 3 months later, a week later, they'll write a song and then, no, I wrote this. Like they literally believe that they wrote it. Is there a comic book version of that disease?
Oh, yeah.
Not calling everyone a copycat, but I wonder if there's
there's a lot like that, sure. I think that creatively, we're all connected. You know, like the internet is a simplified version of the human brain, right? And how it's almost like a dumber version of how the human brain operates on a very basic level, how we connect with one another. But people we have sophisticated brains, and that's why I say we kind of dumb down, because we're like using that tool as a way of life, when our brain is so much more sophisticated and faster, and we communicate with each other, and ideas, knowledge, foresight, like inspiration, all those things. Sometimes I'll have an idea. Like I remember seeing The Matrix for the first time. I sat down and I watched that movie, and I watched it. I was like, oh my God. It scared me. It was a scary movie. To me, that was like a horror movie, because I remember having a dream almost identical to that film. I never wrote it, and never turned it into a comic book or anything, but I had a dream that I was talking to a girlfriend, in college, and all of a sudden she glitched out.
Oh, wow.
And I was like in this like huge, vast, endless room of tubes.
Wow.
That didn't look like the tubes in The Matrix. They were like white tubes in a lab, but this endless room of tubes. And I woke up and I was screaming and banging on the glass trying to get out. And these doctors came forward, and they were completely covered head to toe, went and started touching on the keypad.
Wow.
And I passed out, and I came back into the dream. And I was with the girl at the coffee counter talking, and she was continuing talking like nothing happened. I was like, did you just see that? Did you see what happened? She's like, what? I said, I just disappeared. I just moved. And she was like, what are you talking about? You crazy? I said, what's happening? And then I glitched out again, and I went back, and I started screaming in the tube, saying, let me out, let me out. And there's all these other people that were asleep in these tubes.
Wow. That's scary.
And that was a whole year before The Matrix.
Wow.
So we're
definitely connected.
We're definitely connected.
Okay.
Just like I said, before cell phones, we had telepathy. You knew your friend was going to be somewhere at a certain time or place. Some people relied on payphones, like meet me here, whatever, or beeper, or whatever. But sometimes you were just thinking about the person, and they appeared in front of you, right? Sometimes you just sensed they're going to be here. They're going to be there. I know this person. I know their habits. I know where they're going to be. We're going to meet up. We're going to be here. And people met, And now we're losing that.
Wow.
Because we're depending on these cancer devices to tell us what to do, where to go.
Well, with 5G,
yeah,
that will be a fact rather than the conspiracy.
Yeah, and the Wi-Fi itself changing and corrupting our DNA.
Right.
And it corrupts our DNA and our children's DNA. So let's say you have a 15-year-old girl on a cell phone right now. She's talking. She starts to have a kid at 35. Her DNA has already been altered and corrupted. She has a child. That child never has been on a cell phone, but he will have been born with corrupted DNA. And then when that child has a child, we'll also have corrupt DNA. We're actually changing the physical structure of the human body.
Wow.
Through technology. So our technology is actually killing us.
Is that in any of your...
No, it's not, but it should be.
It should be. It will be after today's, because this is recorded. You can't steal it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, but that's just facts,
but I mean, it's interesting how much of realities and arts and reality
right.
I have to go into. I'm holding back because I feel that I have to talk about you with you separate. Just these movies. And the impact and how that's affecting the comic books. But any advice to comic book creators living in this world where there's digital comics? Again, they can do it all themselves. But if you really want to get out there on another level, you got to be a part of the machine. Any advice with any of that?
Well, I approached someone that talks to people at Netflix to try to get a TV show adaptation of my comics. They said this. They were like, number one, you need to be in social media all the time, right? You need to have 100,000 subscribers or likes on, people following you, 100,000.
Okay.
Right, minimum. If you're in the millions, fantastic. But no studio will look at you or take you seriously unless you have your numbers in that, like 100,000 or more. And you just have to be like ever present and be aware of. Like, you have to know lawyers, litigation, know your rights, your property rights, having your stuff protected, trademarked, copyrighted, and even with that, you still have to be on top of when people rip you off. You have to send them ceases and desist. You know, talking to lawyers. I have a trademark lawyer that I'm friendly with and talk to, but you know, it's like, and he's helped me with some certain cases. But you should have more than one, because sometimes they're going through shit, and then you know, in our lives, and then you have to, well, who do I use?
Right.
So you know, you have to have like a resource of legal friends.
Right.
It's like, you know, it's like when they tell you back in the day, you need a lawyer and a doctor, a family doctor,
Right.
an undertaker. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, you need all those things to help you promote and keep your business going. So I suggest for anyone who's willing to do that, you know, and you have to have integrity. You have to keep your integrity. Don't sell your soul for a few minutes of fame.
Right.
Because that, you know, things come and go, and you yourself, you can't escape yourself, you know. So no amount of drugs or anything can keep you from yourself. At some point, you're going to come down, and you're going to have to deal with the reality of who you are.
Right.
And if you're a good person, then, and if you're a shitty person, then, you know. So, you know.
Right.
So that's what I gotta say. You know. Yeah, I mean, our lives have changed a lot. I mean, I spent the last 8 years in court. You know, it's like for various things. You know,
And won
won. So
against Marvel and DC.
it's Marvel and DC. So it's just
And you
like-
represented yourself.
That's right. So it's things like that. You just need to, you know, be prepared. Avoid, you know, confrontation. Like I said, you just have to. I'm learning that now, but you have to be adamant too. Like if something, you know, and know who your real friends are. You know, someone told me you can count your real friends on one hand. Now it's more like half a hand. You know,
You know.
half a hand. You know, it's just you just have to be true to yourself all the time.
Yeah, because there's so many people out there that want to. Again, there's passion,
Yeah.
but then Marvel. Oh, well, if I create my own Thor, I'll be rich. So then they do the
There's a lot of
conventions, they do
copycats.
this, they do that,
A lot
and
of copycats.
I get it. You know, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but the long haul, no one's doing this for 25 years.
Right.
Just
No one's the phonies
Yeah.
won't last.
yeah.
They'll come and go. They'll just like a year. You know?
Any comic books that you were into that aren't yours?
That I'm reading right now. I was reading the Doomsday Clock. What a freaking disappointment that was.
Oh, really?
I think it was like late all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading Heroes in Crisis up to issue 6, and it was terrible. Tom King, you suck. You know, no disrespect.
Right.
But he's really destroyed my DC.
Wow.
I was reading Batman and quit. I think it's Tom King again. No shade, no shade. I mean, you know, every writer has their own perspective and experience, and I'm respectful. But not everyone's cup of tea is going to be the same thing. I'm sure a lot of people don't like my books, you know, and that's okay. You know, that's what makes America great, right? It's like having diversity, okay?
Right.
Nothing that stood out. I was reading League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with The Tempest by Alan Moore. It's his last comic book. Now he's doing straight up novels now. And I got his new novel. I haven't began reading it yet because I'm trying to get through some stuff. And I've been reading old stuff, old books, old comics.
Now, does that feed you? Because I know some comic book creators that avoid reading.
Other comics.
Right.
Well, I read other comics to make sure that my shit's not getting stolen. That's
Okay.
I used to read it I used to read comics for pleasure.
Okay.
But in the last 12, 15 years, I just go to the comic book store and make sure that nothing is being replicated, you know. And quite a few things have, you know. Dynamite ripped off the Roach for a few issues, and I posted on social media, and then they killed the character. I mean, whether it was intentional or unintentional.
Right.
But they ripped off the Roach character design and put it for the Green Hornet 2.0, and I was like, this is retarded.
Wow.
People rip you off. DC right now is ripping me off. I sent them a cease and desist. They changed the character's costume, and now the artists are changing it back to look like what it was, you know. So I have to send another one, you know, for the Signal, ripping off Black Power. It's exhausting. So I don't really read comics to enjoy them as much as I used to, you know.
Wow.
It's more like just keeping an eye open.
Right.
what's out there and what not to do. You don't want to have an idea and write something that's already been done. You know.
Right. Yeah, that's not fun.
No, and you know.
Well, not for a creative person.
Most books that I read for enjoyment are like motivational books, books on spirituality, history. You know, those are things that I find inspiring. And dreaming. I mean, man, if I get sleep, you know, I love to dream. Like I had a great superhero dream last night. You know.
Okay.
But I need to like start doing more nonfiction books, writing more about my life. I'm working on a memoir about my life, and that's the introduction was touching up on that. About like my life as a young person and being a New Yorker and things I was exposed to. And I think that's important for people to learn, you know, learn the lesson, follow the path, you know, don't repeat their mistakes.
Tell people your social media.
You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat under Bronx Heroes. And you can find me on bxhcc.com. And one more. If you got Mug Life, you can find me on Mug Life too.
Awesome. And again, any confusion, just Google Bronx Heroes.
Yes.
And you will find him.
Yes.
And also information on future cons
Yep.
that you're going to do. So look out for Bronx Heroes Comic Con.
Right now we're looking at the Freeman home for spring.
Okay.
Nothing's nailed down yet. We're trying to match our calendars, so maybe spring or summer, to do the 12th anniversary of the Bronx Heroes Con, you know. So that's what we're thinking of right now.
What about the anniversary for Women in Comics?
Well, this will only be the 6th annual one, so we won't have any anniversaries until like maybe 2024. So
Cool.
Yeah. 20.
Well, looking forward to see you at the helm of that.
Yes. So.
And that's awesome because again, that vision way before everyone else was on the bandwagon. And
right, and you know, it's growing. What's beautiful about it is that we have a West Coast division. It's growing. You know, there's a lot of female creators. And that's what we want. We want it to be thousands of members. You know.
Cool.
I see it as a comic book company producing its own books, distributing its own books, kind of like Sakura Comics.
Okay.
That's kind of like the idea I had when I first thought about it. I was like, Japan had an all-female company with produced their own comic books. They had their distribution. They have their cartoons, their whole multimedia. And I thought that Women in Comics would be a great platform to promote that for young people, young women.
Cool.
You know, and then also LGBTQ and, you know, transgender and non-binary, binary, you know, like all for everyone, you know, not just
everyone can come to the table and play.
Right. It's and you want it to grow. You know, you want to make it acceptable and inviting for everyone, a safe space, and that's, to me, that's what's more important. You know.
Awesome.
We got to break the barriers of gender and so-called race, because I don't prescribe to race. You know. There's only one race on the planet. It's the human race, you know, and we're one human family, and we have to overcome these stigmas and brainwashing ideas that have been with us for centuries, you know.
I agree.
You know.
Well, thank you, folks, for watching. You're watching Geekcaster. So many casters. Thank you so much for watching. And yes, we will talk about some film stuff, and then I'll let you free.